Welcome to Midlife Man. In this episode, we want to cover the importance of nutrition. And if you're like most blokes out there, you probably don't pay much attention to what you're eating. Most of you will probably eat what you want, when you want it, because you're hungry. And while that might be fun, it's not necessarily the best way to improve performance, improve your body composition. You do need to have some control over the food that you ingest, because it is determining the energy that goes into your body. It is also determining all the other key components of health related to your fat ingestion, carbohydrate for fueling your workouts, and proteins for building muscle and repairing after exercise. So there's lots to cover when it comes to nutrition. Hopefully we can give you the key strategies to monitoring, reading food labels, and controlling your food so that you can either lose fat, build muscle, or improve your performance.
Even starting out with something as simple as reading nutritional labels, being accountable and being responsible for what you actually put into your body. It is very, very important. And so we're going to break down for you what exactly the calories, the macronutrients, the micronutrients are on the labels and how they can help you.
So if we start with calories, what are calories? They are essentially a unit of energy. So it doesn't matter whether you'd use watts, joules, all forms of energy. And in this instance, calories are applied to the human body when it comes to the energy you ingest from food. So the most important thing you do if you're trying to lose body fat in particular is that you need to burn more energy than you ingest. So in order to do that, you need to be aware of the calories that are coming in. Now, every single food has a caloric value, and what we're going to try and do in this episode is break down some of the more common foods, their calorie content, and give you an association with how much exercise you would have to do in order to burn that many calories.
Now, if we look at the macronutrient breakdown of what the foods are, so if we have our calories, that's the total energy, it's broken down further into the macronutrients, so the protein, the fats, and the carbohydrates, the ratios that make up the total calories that we eat. First up, we have protein. Now, protein's thrown around a lot. We're talking about taking in an adequate amount of protein for the repair, the recovery, and the reproduction of cells, but basically taking enough protein to ensure that we can adequately recover from the training sessions or the new exercise that we're undertaking.
The other macronutrient, which is going to be key to your performance, is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are essentially fuel for the body. So we're talking about breads, cereals, fruits, vegetables, things like that. So the carbohydrates are going to give you the energy to perform. They also are quite often rich in fiber and micronutrients and things like that. So there are certainly other nutritional benefits linked to those carbohydrate-rich foods. But the focus is going to be on the difference between very carb-dense foods, typically sugary and processed foods, and more starchy foods, which are generally your whole foods, your vegetables, your sweet potatoes, and things of that nature.
Next up, we have fats. Now, fats get a really bad rap, and the reason why they get a bad rap is because they're very calorie dense. That means for a very small amount, they have a high amount of calories. And if you eat a lot of foods that are high in fats, very quickly the amount of calories that you can eat over a day increases. Now, fats are vital for many different functions in the body, everything from hormone production to different fat-soluble vitamins and minerals that we need for essential functions. So fats are very, very important. We just need to be aware that they are also extremely calorie dense. So we need to be mindful of the total amount of fats that we eat across any 24-hour period.
There is one other macronutrient that doesn't actually classify as a protein, a carbohydrate, or a fat, and that is alcohol. Alcohol is also very calorically dense. Now, your body can't store alcohol, so what it does is it burns it as opposed to anything else you eat. So it's not technically the alcohol that's making you fat, it's everything you eat with the alcohol, because the body is no longer burning that food as a fuel source and it's burning up the alcohol first. So alcohol definitely counts, it has energy, it has calories, and it has quite a bit. So that is something you have to monitor as well.
So if we're talking macronutrients, we're talking calories, each macronutrient has a different value in terms of calories and how much energy it's going to add to your total calorie intake for the day. So first up, if we have 1 gram of a carbohydrate, that's equal to approximately 4 calories. If we have 1 gram of a protein, that's equal to approximately 4 calories as well. Now fats, that's the energy dense one we were just talking about. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories approximately. And finally we have alcohol that Scott mentioned, and 1 gram of alcohol has 7 calories. Right now we're going to go through some very common takeaway options that you've probably encountered many times yourselves, whether it's meat pie and a beer at the footy. It's a late night pizza. It's a kebab in the middle of the night. These are all very common takeaway options. Now, the reason why we've got them on here today is to show you just how quickly the calories can creep up if, number one, if you don't have some sort of measure to be able to track what you're eating for the day. And number two, if you just rely on takeaway options, then this is how quickly the calories can creep up. And if the calories creep up, it means you've got to work those calories off. And if you don't work those calories off, potentially it's going to be stored as body fat. So these are very common takeaway options that we've got, and we're going to go through the total calories in there, plus just how much exercise you would need to complete to actually work off the foods here.
So if we start off with meal one, our large Big Mac meal over there. So we've got a large Big Mac, large fries, large drink, and a sundae. You are looking at 1,720 calories. So it's well over 60 grams of fat and over 240 grams of carbohydrates. So that's a very energy dense meal. And if you're a 90 kilo man, you're gonna have to jog for about 3 hours at a pretty decent pace, 7.5 kilometers per hour, to burn off that many calories.
Now, would you say, Scotty, the one sort of problem with that meal is you could eat that and still be completely starving, no problems at all, and you've just consumed 1,700 calories.
It is the definition of calorically dense. So yeah, I'm sure many of you have eaten similar meals, and that just gives you a little bit of perspective about how much exercise it takes to burn off a meal like that.
Next up, we have probably most people's favorite, a barbecue meat lovers pizza. Scotty, we're talking about over 2,000 calories, over 90 grams of fat, and 160 grams of carbohydrates. I mean, that is just an absolute monster. And if we wanted to work that off, if we're a 90 kilo person and we were to walk at 5 kilometers per hour, which is a moderate pace, it's not too quick, it's not too slow, we would need to be walking for 8 hours straight to work off that pizza.
It puts it in perspective, and if you were to have that pizza for dinner and a Big Mac meal for lunch, you're going to be walking and jogging for 11 hours straight. So keep that in mind when you're making your food selections. Next up, we've got a late night servo hit here. We've got a Mars bar, a packet of chips, and a classic Coke. And you're looking at over 1,100 calories for this. So these guys come in at about 250 calories each, and the chips come in at 650 calories. And maybe this is a little bit more pleasurable option, but you would have to play golf for at least 3 hours if you're a 90 kilo man in order to burn those calories off.
So you've had a late night out with the boys, you've had a few beers, and you're looking for, what you consider to be a fairly clean option of food. You think you're doing the right thing by getting a kebab. And look, there's nothing that's sort of fundamentally wrong with this chicken kebab, but the calories can creep up if you're not tracking what you're eating. And for that case, this kebab here has nearly 600 calories, just a standard chicken kebab, late night chicken kebab, 600 calories. And that would mean you would need to train with weights, moderate intensity for 2.5 hours just to work off that one kebab. So if you go to the gym, you've had a good session, let's say you've trained for an hour, you still are not even halfway through working off the kebab that you had last night, thinking that, potentially you've made a good choice. But again, you need to be mindful of the total calories with the food that you eat, because it's very important.
To Luke's left here, we've got a nice little late afternoon weekend snack for a lot of you. It is a meat pie with sauce and a beer. And that still comes in at 600 calories in total. So you're looking at 24 grams of fat, 60 grams of carbohydrates. That's a decent feed, even though you can knock it off without thinking. We have a fantastic exercise equivalent for you here, gentlemen. If you can perform moderate intensity sexual activity for 2.5 hours, you have burned off that meat pie and beer. Good luck to you, and good luck to your partners.
When was the last time you've had moderate intensity sexual activity for 2.5 hours, Scotty?
Well, I do have a young daughter, Luke. It's probably the sum total of time over the last year.
Finally, look, you're on the way to work. You've skipped breakfast. You've got up early. You can't be bothered having brekkie. You think, I'm going to get a coffee on the way to work. And what's better than a Macca's coffee? But the problem with the McDonald's coffee, this is a large cappuccino from McDonald's, and we're talking about 206 calories, roughly. Now, if you were to work that coffee off, you would need to mow your lawns continuously for 30 minutes just to work off the calories that's in this one cup of coffee.
All right, this is the end result of consuming too much of this. 1 kilo of fat is the equivalent of 7,700 calories. So if you order to ingest more than 7,700 calories than you burn, you can expect to accumulate 1 kilo of fat on your body. So this is important stuff. We've got a lot of calorie dense food here. You need to be aware of everything that goes in your mouth, even the sneaky little things like the cappuccinos that do contribute to that calorie intake. And you need to be aware of the amount of calories you burn. If you get the balance right, you'll start chipping into this and you'll be burning this off rather than your food. If you get the balance wrong, you're going to be starting to accumulate some of this.
Now, it's not just about appearance with body fat. I mean, nobody wants to have that hanging off their body. I mean, there's no question about it. But it's also the health risks that are associated with having a higher body fat level, especially males. If we store large amounts of body fat around our waist, it really signifies an increased risk for many different types of diseases. We've already spoken about the cardiovascular disease, the coronary heart disease. You know, it increases blood cholesterol. It can cause early onset of diabetes. There's just a whole plethora of different diseases associated with having a large storage of body fat, particularly for a male, around your waist. So we want to try to avoid putting on this body fat as much as humanly possible.
So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into what foods contain and how to look at your foods and break down what you're actually taking in. Remember, calories is probably your number one priority. We want to create an energy balance, whether you're ingesting less energy than what you burn to lose fat, or maybe even more energy than what you burn if you're looking to build muscle. And we want you to be aware of the macronutrients, because we're going to go into further detail a little bit later on how to construct a correct diet for you. And without that information, it's going to be very, very difficult. So this is the building blocks around all good nutrition plans.
And look, one thing we're going to say just in conclusion is that Australia, we're very hard to eat good, healthy foods because takeaway options are everywhere. And they're easy, they're quick, they taste good. It is a challenge to take control and responsibility of your overall nutrition. It can be difficult and it can take a lot of ongoing work. However, the benefits, the health benefits, they're massive, and we can't really understate just how important it is to have just some sort of control and some sort of understanding of your overall nutrition.